A new law requires violent offenders to wear GPS monitoring devices that notify a victim if their offender is nearby. Since that law took effect 4 months ago, local departments have been struggling to keep up. In 2022, 62,217 domestic violence victims were reported to the Tennessee Incident-Based Reporting System. This legislation aims to protect those victims. It's progress, but some say there's still a ways to go.
My daughter Lauren was a really wonderful young woman.
But Lance Johansson's daughter Lauren was murdered in July. He tells me Lauren was sweet, loving, and giving, an animal lover with plans to graduate nursing school.
It just breaks my heart that I've lost her, and that something so simple as even a one phone call from a number of different people could have saved her life. Nobody did anything.
Johansson says at just 22 years old, Lauren was killed by her ex-boyfriend, who just months previously was charged with severely beating her in Nashville.
When the police came, he was trying to kill her. He had beaten her face in so badly that she couldn't see out of her left eye, and she was screaming for her life when the police opened the door and let her out.
23-year-old Bryson Rivers faces several charges, including especially aggravated kidnapping, stalking, and interfering with a 911 call. Lauren's father says he was fitted with an ankle monitor.
I received this call out of the blue from the victim's advocate woman with the district attorney's office saying that they've let him out. They don't know where he is, and they can't get in touch with him. Nobody could tell me where she was. Nobody could tell me where he was on his GPS monitor. And I kept calling people. The DA's office didn't know. The victim advocate didn't know. I called the bond office and they didn't know. And they finally got a hold of the ankle monitoring person.
Shortly after, Lauren was killed in Mississippi following a manhunt for Rivers.
In this particular case, what the ankle monitor did was help document the murder of my daughter. That's the only purpose that it served, was to document how the murder happened, where he was, and where he went with her body.
While it saddens me that there are still cracks there, it still leaves us room to improve and continue to sort of fight, for that and give victims, information that they need to protect themselves.
It's information that Alex Yon says his mother and sister did not have leading up to their murders. In 2021, Yon says his sister Marie Varsos was assaulted by her husband while in the middle of a separation.
Was he arrested? Yes. Was he detained? Yes. Was it for the required time? No. He was illegally released, and he did not have GPS monitoring on him, and he had a follow-up court date.
But before that court date, Jan says Sean Varsos parked in front of Marie's house before killing her and her mother, Debbie Sisko.
I think that had this law been in effect, they would have known that he was sitting out front.
That tragedy pushed Jan to fight for legislation.
I think the biggest thing for me is that I don't want other families to experience what our family experienced. It's very painful. It hurts. And my hope is that, amongst this tragedy, that at least their story is able to protect others and to shine light on what shouldn't happen and how we can better protect victims of domestic violence.
In July, the Debbie and Marie Domestic Violence Protection Act was enacted, which requires violent offenders to wear a GPS monitoring device during the pretrial period as a condition of bail.
If the Debbie and Marie Domestic Violence Protection Acts were enacted at the time of their death, that it would have at least given them a fighting chance.
I think this is a really good law that has gone into effect because it has given us yet another tool to protect domestic violence victims.
Knox County Attorney General Sharm Allen says her office prosecutes many domestic violence cases.
The last statistics I saw were that law enforcement in Knox County responds to a domestic violence call every 20 minutes, so 3 an hour.
And while those offenders are awaiting trial, Allen says it's important to make sure they're protected. Allen explains GPS monitoring isn't new.
But we, because of this law, have now changed the way that we do GPS monitoring.
But now there are two different ways to set it up. First, Allen says you can create exclusion zones, like a victim's home, school, or work, that a defendant cannot visit. Now, Allen says there's also a proximity zone, which shows where a victim is in real time through an app.
Now we have that option where we can give that phone app to the victim so she has more protection with her at all times, 24/7.
While Allen says it's helpful for victims, she says this change has created more work.
It is a heavy lift. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of monitoring. And I know that pretrial is really struggling to keep up.
Pretrial release is set up as an alternative to cash bonds. It's been around since the 70s, but it's changed dramatically through the years.
Knox County Director of Pretrial Release, Stoney Gentry, says one of those biggest changes has come from this new legislation.
It requires many more individuals that are arrested for domestic violence, if court sees fit, to be not only fitted themselves with a GPS device, but also have a device available to the victim of that case.
Gentry says from July 1st to October 15th last year, there were 61 GPS referrals. This year, during that same time period, there have been 262 referrals, which is an increase of 329%.
80% of those are from the Debbie and Marie Domestic Violence Act.
All of those are monitored by people in Gentry's department.
We place the devices on. We monitor the devices. When alerts are received, my officers respond to those alerts. And if necessary, we also send dispatch out in addition. Right now, we currently have 110 GPS cases that are being actively supervised, which is the most we've ever had at one point in time.
While the workload has increased dramatically, Gentry says the funding has not.
This was an unfunded mandate that has created a lot of issues and damage.
Gentry says his department and the local jail are overwhelmed.
There is a lack of consistency. There seems to be differing prices associated with these GPS monitors in different jurisdictions, different ways in which these programs are being administered.
Nate Ogle is a defense attorney in Knoxville who has seen the legislation's impact, including on the clients he represents.
Oftentimes what I have seen is there are situations that have arisen where local jails or pretrial monitoring groups are having a hard time getting these monitors, for one, and then two, they're having a hard time making contact with alleged victims in these cases because the statute requires that they make contact with them and get them enrolled into these programs.
Ogle says that means his clients are sitting in jail waiting to be fitted with a monitor.
Sadly, it's not working within the time frame that's allotted under the statute. I have seen situations where individuals, citizens accused who are presumed innocent, are being held well past the statutory time that's allotted, sometimes well over a day.
A situation he tells me is concerning.
Now, instead of it being a tool or a part of pretrial monitoring that could be enlisted under certain facts and circumstances that might be applicable to a certain person, it's this one-size-fits-all approach where we're using this in any and all situations where you have domestic assault, domestic aggravated assault that's been alleged. Nothing's been proven at this point.
We definitely had some challenges. So you've got 95 counties in the state. There's 95 different ways of doing things.
Representative Clay Doggett sponsored the bill, drawing on conversations with victims and his own experience in law enforcement.
Chairman Doggett, you're recognized.
While it was enacted this year, Doggett says the work is not over.
We're considering making some clarifying changes in the legislation going forward this next General Assembly to see about making the implementation process a little bit more seamless so that everyone can kind of hop on board and be doing something that's uniform across all 95 counties.
Improvements, Johansson says he's hoping to see.
If we're going to, let violent criminals out on a bond with an ankle monitor, there's a lot of things that need to be fixed in the system to make the victim and the victim's family and the other witnesses safe, and they're not being done in Tennessee.
Representative Doggett says he's having conversations with leaders in each county across the state, like Gentry, to continue improving the process.
Funding is going to be absolutely necessary.
And encouraging victims to use the resource.
What we're seeing is very few victims will actually request their device. Out of all the 110 devices we have out, there's only about 7% of the victims that have requested and got the app to show close proximity.
We can give victims the tools and resources, that they need to arm themselves and protect themselves. What's happening now is that these conversations are happening and there's being more process that's put in place. And while I'm saddened to see that it's not fully to where it needs to be, I'm hopeful and optimistic that it will at least sort of get to where it needs to be. We wouldn't be having this conversation right now if it wasn't.